Hi, I'm Ken Crawford, president of the Alaska Conference, and I want to show you around my Alaska. I love it here. This is not the end of the world, but it's pretty close. I love Alaska. It's the greatest adventure you could ever imagine. If you want to find out more, go to our website, alaskaconference.org, and you'll find all kinds of information and stories on what Alaska is like. There's a constant collision between civilization and nature because we live next to each other. There's a feeling of remoteness, not isolation, but remoteness. There is a vastness in the wilderness in Alaska. The mountains are more majestic. Nature is undisputed master. There's something about this country that sets off in me a craving for heaven. If you're enjoying these series that we're doing, then maybe you can appreciate the great challenges we have in Alaska. For example, in St. Lawrence Island, with our two little villages in Savunga and Gamble, where we have a church and a parsonage. If you want some clothes to wear, you either order them by catalog or you wait until your once a year or so visit to Anchorage to a mall or something like that. So it's a challenge living in these remote villages, even for groceries. But you're going to enjoy this rummage sale.
Hi, I'm Marie Tooley. Welcome to Savunga, Alaska.
Some of the church members in Savunga, along with Pastor Fred, wrote letters to people in the churches in the lower 48 and asked them if they would like to donate things to help in Savunga, winter clothes and things like that.
We have coats for everybody, like kids, men's, women's, pants. We get lots of new things. If you want to help us send something to Seventh-day Adventist Church in Savunga, our box number is 123, Savunga, Alaska 99769.
Gamble is about 35 miles off the coast of Siberia. In fact, on a clear day, you can sit on the side of the hill and see the whole coast of Siberia. At night, you can watch the rotating beacon from Providenia.
We do lots of walrus hunting in springtime. We used to have a lot of dog team around here, you know.
Alaska is famous for its dog sled teams. They've run from one end of Alaska to the other over the years, for centuries in fact. It's only recently that they've changed to snow machines. But I want you to meet somebody special. Chester Nunwook lives in Savunga. Chester was the last U.S. postal dog sled musher in Alaska. He traveled back and forth between Savunga and Gamble, about a 70-mile trip, several times a week taking the mail back and forth. Chester gave his life to Christ here not long ago, was baptized, and now you'll find him every morning sitting at his kitchen table and studying the Bible.
Yana pinekamang talangan nuna santuna tanangin hakenani kinaluna kupakikuni iflayakan rito asko sakak ngilmo kumuwasak siwu kamaktamaluk makan siwu ngomong siwu kamang nunatanun tadima.
When he studies, he reads the Bible in English, and then he translates into Siberian Yupik for his wife. In a previous episode of My Alaska, I told you the story about Nathan Nunwook. He was the first Seventh-day Adventist on St. Lawrence Island, and believe me, it was difficult. His son, Chester, wants to tell you a little more about his dad.
My father, he was the first one to become the Seventh-day Adventist Church way back in early 40s, I guess, during Second World War. We didn't have any written thing like this, how to do and how not to do. And we were told by their words from generation to generation. We came to read the Bible. He told me that he read it in 1 year. I tried to read it in 1 year, but it left over part of it. And later on, my brother, my younger brother and sister, two of my sisters, and then they kept worshiping. There is God, always. There's only one God that worship, no other God like him. Honor thy father and thy mother. Honor your elder people. Honor your father, the old people. Worship him day and night. Before we found what the religion is or what the Christianity is. They call it Great Appa. We won't forget. Every morning we took a little worship in the morning and in the evening to God. Even though something comes up to us, and we keep worshiping. We prayed for the whole village. We prayed for the villages to villages. We prayed all over the world. They brought in Siberian Huskies from Siberia, I guess. And we call the dog here on the island, it's called Siberian Huskies. And then I carried the mail between here and Gamble by dog team. I marked the trail. The last dog sled mail carrier in the world. That was me. That was airline. My mother clipped it off from the newspaper. The postmaster ordered me, where there's snow, rain, blowing snow, mail must go through post office to post office. From the point over there to point of Gamble, it's 35 miles straight to Gamble, inland, avoiding the lagoons and here and there. It's probably about 75 to 80 miles a trip. There are some polar bear tracks on the ground, on the snow. I carry a rifle here to Gamble, just in case. I had about 24 dogs or more. When the trail is good, I usually use 10 dogs to 12. When I use 12, 14, I leave between here and Gamble, 2 dogs. When I make a trip, a round trip, 1 day. So I let my dog rest for about 2 or 3 hours in Gamble. So on the way, I hitch up those 2 dogs I left behind. It gave us more power. So I keep in my mind that mail must go through, even though if I see a reindeer, I won't try to kill it or get it. And this reindeer on the island came in about early 30s, somewhere around there, by the order of President Roosevelt, because of the starvations in the past. So we don't have to get any other starvation. So he brought reindeers here and there, all over. We got this reindeer here today. That's a good part of the president think of the Eskimo people to bring that reindeer, herd of reindeer here on the island. We used to carry the mail in once a month when I started. And the Postmaster General, I guess his name was Summerfield or somebody, under Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and he ordered to take once a week to Gamble with a pay of $40 a trip. 1 month I earned about $160. That was lots of money in them days. And then later on, airline took over. Paid me $2 a trip, sled load from from the airport to the post office. $2. $2, which was not enough to buy me a can of milk. 6 years I served, and the Wayne Airlines took over the road between here and Gamble. Today, we got 2-3 airlines traveling between here and Nome twice a day. Mail is very slow, slower than I took. I ran it over once a week.
We've got some unique people that live here in Nome, a lot of pilots, and Mike Owens has been here for the last 30 years, and he's one of the flight evacuation nurses. Travels back and forth with the medical flights as people are evacuated to Anchorage.
A lot of Americans would never think of Alaska or any of our states being third world, and in many ways rural Alaska is third world with its challenges. Residents of these communities want to see an individual or a couple or a family come up and dedicate time, and we're talking multiple years, to be part of that community and to become part of that community and part of the relationships, form bonds that will last for years. They're the most phenomenal people you will ever work with.
We caught a whale, the first whale in Sivunga in 1972. We were happy. Everybody said, order me some darting gun so we can follow you. Today, there is about 34 whaling captains here in Sivunga with a quota of 8 whales to land.
I want you to meet Wilson. About 35 years ago, my wife Colleen and I studied with Wilson and his wife Hortense, and they were baptized into the church, and they've been faithful members ever since. Wilson lost his beloved Hortense here just a few years ago to cancer. But Wilson last April got a bowhead whale, about 45 tons. I think it was about 45 feet long. And Wilson, show us some pictures.
This is my family, my grandchildren. Young men working on a whale. Just getting started.
Chester and Wilson have been faithful elders in our church here in Sivunga, Alaska for many years. They have modeled what a relationship with Christ is really about, and they've been faithful to their families and to the church.
Alaska is America's true mission field. Many of these villages have just recently, in the last few months, gotten their cell service, and many don't have cell service even yet.
His daughter, Melissa, is actually one of the youngest ones to run the Iditarod.
And welcome to the ceremonial start of Iditarod 40, the last great race on Earth.
In Alaska, sport and outdoor adventure are a way of life. And for the last 40 years, thousands of Alaskan families come together in the early spring to watch one of the most iconic and demanding races in the world, the Iditarod.
Melissa Owens currently is living in Wasilla, but she was raised here in Nome, and she has a dog team here, and recently ran the Iditarod, the youngest girl to ever run the Iditarod at 18 years of age.
Hi, I'm Melissa Owens, and I'd like to welcome you to Wasilla/Kinnick, Alaska, here in my very messy but humble abode. And we're going to get ready to go do some dog tours tonight, so come along, and we're going to start by mixing up their dinner. And we have 2 different kinds of kibble that we feed right now. They're getting Ukanuba here, and another kibble called Red Paw, and then we add water to that, and then we soak it for about a half an hour, and then after it's soaked, it looks something like this, and then it's ready to go feed. So if you guys want to come along, we're going to go take care of an Iditarod dog sled team.
Sled dog racing was declared our state sport back in '72. But the Iditarod has taken the imagination of the state and of the country because of its distance.
In starting position number 4, from Glenwood Springs, Colorado, that is William Pinkham.
We try and make our chores as easy and as efficient as possible, since you know, we do this on a daily basis, and time is sleep in our world. And being the youngest female to ever finish, you know, puts a little bit of added pressure. Dog sledding does run in my family. My dad ran in 2 years, 87 and 90. All right, these are my dogs, and a lot of them have run Iditarod or have been in training to run Iditarod, and this is where they live year-round. They each have their own little house. They all have a name tag unless they've eaten it off their house. So we're gonna give them some food and make things a little bit quieter around here. Every girl's dream down in the lower 48 would be to have a pony. Well, I never wanted a pony, I wanted a bunch of dogs. Each of these guys has a personality. For instance, this boy here, Koa here, will hold a running conversation with you. Granny here never stops moving. This is Cicely, and she's about 1.5 years, almost 2 years old. So she's just a baby still. Yoda here likes to stash her bowl in her house. And she's due to have puppies in about 2 weeks. I'm sponsored currently by 2 companies, Airland Transport and Northern Air Cargo are my 2 sponsors right now. Here you go, Aztec. As warm as it is, we're only feeding them once a day. That's part of the reason they're getting so much water in their food. But when it's colder, we're training and racing hard. They do get fed twice a day. When we start the Iditarod, we start with 16, and we can't have less than 6 on the line to finish. We're allowed to drop dogs and leave them in the care of vets and race officials, but we can't pick up any more along the way because they are actually rather powerful despite their size. They range anywhere from 35 to 70 pounds. I've paid upwards of $2,000 for a dog, and the cheapest dog I bought was $200. And it all depends on who you get them from, the lines, quality of the dog. I attend the Palmer Seventh-day Adventist church right now. Grew up in the Nome Seventh-day Adventist church, but when I moved I had to change. This is my cabin, and we have different mushers that stay here different times of the year. I've had sprint mushers stay here, I've had distance mushers stay here, and it's just kind of a great spot because we can train right out of the yard. Hey Koa, do you want a little bit more groceries? Are you starving to death? Look at you. Yeah, I know. I haven't fed you in a long time. Forget that belly full of food there. Granny, if I give it to you, you won't eat it. You're too full. Who wants it? They eat about 10,000 calories a day. Shovel about half of that back up. But the reward I get in running and playing with these guys makes it worth all the work. On Iditarod, we can cover about 100 to 120 miles in a 24-hour period. Be that a day or a day and a night is up to your running schedule. But we average about between 100 and 120 miles a day on Iditarod. There's no shortage of dog poop. We could scoop dog poop all night. Depending upon the dog, they can poop anywhere from 1 to half a dozen piles. Isn't that right? Oh, for me, running this race, there's no experience like it anywhere. I get to spend quality time with both my dogs and God, and you learn more about yourself than you ever wanted to know out there. Not only do you learn your habits better, like your sleeping habits, what you need to sleep, but also what you will eat. And you also learn how far you can push yourself. And sometimes you find that limit, and you have to ask God for the strength to help you continue. so you can actually make it to that finish line in one piece. And sometimes take even Aztec's got to put his 2 cents in here. And sometimes you got to ask God for the strength to accept defeat and be willing to know when to quit. Hey, ladies, what's gotten into you two today? But accept defeat and come home early like we had to do the last 2 years. I injured my ankle last October and wasn't able to finish, October 2010, and wasn't able to finish the race I started in 2011. So, and that was one of the toughest decisions I've ever had to make. Currently, my day job, I'm a nanny for an 8-month-old baby. Couldn't ask for a better baby. He's just a real pleasure to be around and to work with. And then in the summer, my day job is a ranger assistant with the Alaska State Parks. Currently I work in Hatcher Pass. I might end up working over at the Little Sioux. Back in the fall, would have been fall of 2007, we were out training for the 2008 Iditarod. I love you too. My friend Heather and I, we came up upon a herd of muskox and tried to get past them, but instead of going past them, the dogs wanted to go play with them. And so they got charged, and we got an awesome picture where it's 23 dogs versus 17 muskox. Bernie Willis is a good friend of ours, and he's the maker of the sleds that I drive in Iditarod.
Bernie Willis raced the Iditarod twice and is now one of the premier sled builders. This year, 16 of the 66 participants will be using his sleds to make the 1,000-mile journey to Nome.
There are a lot of people here that are independent and self-sufficient. That's the pride of people that live here. This sport exemplifies that in tangible terms for basically 2 weeks in the early spring. You and I know Alaska is one of the United States, but most people that I contact with think of Alaska as a separate country, a separate jurisdiction. Not just because we're physically separated from the United States, but we represent, in many people's mind, an image of a frontier situation. They think of the '98 gold rush or the modern oil development, but they also associate Alaska with Iditarod. The name has grown parallel with the name Alaska. It's incredible how this name has taken off. When I'm in Europe, people ask me where I'm from, and I say Alaska. I ask them, have you heard of the Iditarod? And not a single person has ever said, no, what's that? Then they ask me questions. Do I know about the Iditarod? And then we have a conversation. The first 120 miles of the race, there will be spectators. In the first 30 miles, it's almost non-stop spectators.
Lance Mackey is one of the most celebrated mushers in the Iditarod.
I must be ready and somewhat excited to get this on the road.
After fighting through drugs, alcohol, even throat cancer, he turned his life around and won the Iditarod 4 years in a row, something nobody has ever done before.
The first time he won the Iditarod, he traveled 150 miles with one runner on a sled, balancing on the one runner and kicking with his foot on the other side. Incredible endurance. It's not necessarily the athletic physical endurance, but the ability to put up with pain. He was beyond uncomfortable. There's nothing you train for. I was proud that he was willing to take my sleds after that race. And unfortunately, he hasn't had that catastrophe again. Best of luck to you.
Sure nice day for dog race.
Oh, it is. I've worked with a number of people in the sport of dog mushing who have also done extreme outdoor sports, including climbing Mount Everest. And one fellow's done the 7 summits. And he told me recently that running the Iditarod was more involved, more complicated, more difficult for him than climbing Everest. And the reason was that on Everest, his major concern was himself. But on the Iditarod, you are, as the musher, the manager of a team of dogs. And your concern is the health of these dogs, because only because they are healthy can they get you to Nome. And every one of those needs to be protected. The dog needs to be hydrated and fed and warmed and cooled and massaged and harnessed and encouraged to keep on keeping on. And it's interesting to note that on the race, you cannot have any outside help, but you can have all the help you need from fellow mushers. And sometimes it's necessary. In a storm, somebody might have a team that's better than the others and he'll lead others through the storm. The challenge of Iditarod is not a personal challenge. It's a challenge of management and cooperation. And we all find that probably one of the most difficult things to do in life, is to get a group going in the same direction. It's a real team effort to run the Iditarod.
For My Alaska, this has been Ken Crawford. Thanks so much for coming with me. If you enjoyed watching this series, if you're interested in what you've seen or what we're doing in Alaska, go to the Alaska website, alaskaconference.org, and there you'll find additional information.